The war room fell silent as the holographic display showed another system falling to darkness. Admiral Zerath watched the red marker blink twice before disappearing completely. That was the Dranthi homeworld. 3 billion souls gone in less than an hour. They're not even slowing down, Commander Vess whispered beside him. Her scales had turned pale gray, the color of mourning among her people. Zerath looked around the massive chamber carved deep inside Asteron Prime. Representatives from 47 different species stood in small groups, their faces showing the same expression. Fear. Pure, simple fear. For 200 years, the Krillian Dominion had swept across the galaxy like a plague. They came without warning, struck without mercy, and left nothing but dead worlds behind. How many ships do they have now? Someone asked from the back. Our scouts estimate 15,000 warships in their main fleet alone, Zerath replied. His voice sounded tired even to his own ears. That's not counting their smaller attack groups. The room erupted in panicked voices. 15,000. The combined refugee fleet barely had 800 ships that could fight. Most were civilian vessels with weapons strapped to their hulls. Merchant ships pretending to be warriors. Children playing with guns. We need to evacuate, a Valori diplomat said. Her blue skin had lost its usual glow. Move deeper into the outer reaches. Hide in the dark spaces between stars. And then what? Zerath snapped. Hide forever? Watch them hunt us down one planet at a time? They've conquered 3 galactic arms. There's nowhere left to hide. The Valori woman looked away. Everyone knew he was right. The Krillians had perfected the art of finding prey. Their hive mind network shared information instantly across light years. When one ship found you, they all knew. When one fleet attacked, they all learned from it. Zerath remembered the fall of his own home world, Draconis 7. The Krillians had come at dawn. Their quantum disruptors had torn through the planetary shields like paper. The kinetic barriers on their ships had made every weapon useless. Missiles bounced off. Energy beams scattered. Even nuclear weapons barely scratched their hulls. His people had fought bravely for 6 hours before the order came to evacuate. He had escaped with his family on one of the last ships. That was 4 years ago. His family was dead now, killed when the Krillians ambushed their refugee convoy near the Helix Nebula. Zerath had been away commanding the defense fleet. He had failed to protect them. He had failed to save anyone. Admiral, we're receiving a strange signal, a communications officer called out. Zerath welcomed the distraction. What kind of signal? Old format, very old. It's coming from the Sol system. The room went quiet again. Sol system. Earth. Everyone knew that name from the galactic archives. Humanity had been marked as extinct 400 years ago. Their sun had gone dark, something about stellar death. The planet had been checked once, found frozen and lifeless, then forgotten. Could be a Krillian trap, Vess suggested. They've used fake distress signals before. The encoding is wrong for that, the communications officer said, studying his screen. This is genuine human protocol. Pre-extinction era. Someone's using very old technology to broadcast. Zerath felt something stir in his chest. Not hope exactly. Hope was dangerous. But curiosity, maybe. A mystery was better than sitting here waiting to die. I want a scout team ready in 10 minutes, he ordered. We'll investigate personally. Admiral, that's a 3-day jump from here, Vess protested. The Krillians could attack while you're gone. Then they attack. We're dead either way, Commander. At least this way I die doing something. The journey to Sol system took longer than expected. Their faster-than-light drive kept failing. Damage from too many battles and not enough repairs. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter's orbit, Zerath expected to find nothing. Maybe some old satellite still broadcasting its automated message to the void. What he found instead made him question his own eyes. A ship hung in space ahead of them. Not an ancient derelict. Not some ghost ship drifting dead. A working vessel, its lights glowing warm in the darkness. The design was strange, boxy and angular, where most modern ships were smooth and curved. It looked primitive compared to current technology, but there was something solid about it. Something that said this ship was built to last. Scanning now, his sensor operator said. Admiral, I'm picking up life signs. Hundreds of them. They're human. That's impossible, Vess breathed. Thermal signature is active. Power generation is steady. They're using some kind of fusion reactor. Old design, but functional. And Admiral, they're armed. I count at least 40 weapons ports, though the technology is outdated. Looks like railguns and chemical missile systems. Before Zerath could respond, his communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable Galactic Common. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command Ship Defiance. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Zerath activated his own transmitter, his hands shaking slightly. Captain Chen, this is Admiral Zerath of the Refugee Defense Fleet. We received a signal from this system. We thought humanity was extinct. There was a pause. Then the voice came back, touched with sadness. Earth is gone, Admiral. Our sun died like the records say. But humanity didn't die with it. We escaped. Generation ships, hidden colonies, whatever we could manage. We've been searching for a new home ever since. How many of you survived? Hard to say. The fleet scattered. But enough. Always enough. Humans are hard to kill completely. Zerath felt that stirring again. This time he recognized it. It was hope. Dangerous and foolish and impossible to suppress. Captain Chen, I need to warn you about something. There's an enemy force in this galaxy. They call themselves the Krillian Dominion. They've been destroying civilizations for 2 centuries. They're unstoppable. Nothing can stand against them. Another pause. Longer this time. When Captain Chen spoke again, her voice was colder. Harder. Admiral, humanity spent 400 years running and hiding in the dark. We've fought wars against each other, against nature, against the universe itself. We've survived ice ages on colony ships and civil wars on generation vessels. We've died and been reborn 1,000 times over. The human ship's engines flared brighter, moving closer to Zerath's vessel. So tell me about these Krillians, Admiral. Tell me everything. Because if they're the reason my people can't find a safe home in this galaxy, then we have a problem. And humanity has always been good at solving problems. Zerath began uploading all their data on the Krillians. Battle records, tactical analyses, everything they knew. As the files transferred, he watched the human ship on his screen. It was smaller than he expected. Older, less advanced, but something about it felt different. Something about the way it moved through space, confident and unafraid, like a predator that didn't know it should be prey. Captain Chen, he said quietly, they've destroyed species far more advanced than either of us. Admiral, she replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Advanced isn't the same as dangerous. We'll see you soon. Defiance out. The communication went dead. Zerath stared at the screen for a long moment. What do you think? Fess asked. I think, Zerath said slowly, the Krillians are about to learn something new. The human warship looked even stranger up close. Zerath stood in the docking bay of Asteron Prime, watching as Captain Sarah Chen walked down the boarding ramp. She moved with confidence, her boots clicking against metal with each step. Behind her came a small group of officers, all wearing the same dark blue uniforms with an old Earth flag patch on their shoulders. Chen was shorter than Zerath expected. Most species in the galaxy stood at least 7 feet tall. The captain barely reached 6 feet. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her brown eyes moved constantly, taking in everything around her. She looked young, maybe 40 cycles old, but there was something ancient in those eyes, something that had seen too much. Admiral Zerath, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for allowing us to dock. Zerath took her hand carefully. Human skin felt strange, soft and warm. Thank you for coming, Captain. Though I must admit I don't know what one ship can do against the Krillian fleet. Chen smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Let's talk about that. They gathered in the war room an hour later. Representatives from all the major refugee groups crowded in to see the humans. Zerath noticed how they stared, whispering among themselves. Humans were legends, ghost stories, species that existed only in history files. Captain Chen stood before the holographic display, studying the recorded battles against the Krillians. She watched 3 different engagements without speaking, her face showing no emotion. Her officers took notes on small data tablets, occasionally asking questions about fleet positions or weapons effectiveness. You all fight the same way, Chen finally said. She pointed at the display. Here the Valori fleet formed a defensive sphere. Standard textbook formation. Here the Drenthi Empire used a hammer and anvil tactic. Also textbook. And here, Admiral, your own forces employed a fighting retreat with covering fire. Those are proven military strategies, a Valori commander said defensively, used successfully for thousands of years. Against conventional enemies, yes, Chen agreed. But the Krillians aren't conventional. They have a hive mind. They share information instantly. Every battle you fight, they learn from. Every tactic you use, they adapt to. You're fighting by the rules against an enemy that's rewriting the rules with every engagement. Zerath felt his heart sink. So you're saying there's no hope? They're too advanced. I'm saying you're thinking about this wrong. Chen manipulated the display, pulling up data on Krillian ships. Yes, their technology is impressive. Quantum disruptors, kinetic barriers, faster than light communication. But advanced technology creates dependencies, weaknesses. We've analyzed everything, Commander Vess said. There are no weaknesses. Their shields stop everything. Their shields stop energy weapons and high-speed projectiles, Chen corrected. But what about low-speed kinetic weapons? Their barriers are designed to deflect things moving faster than a certain velocity. It's basic physics. Too much energy to absorb, so they deflect it, but something moving slower. One of the human officers pulled up a new display. Our railguns use variable velocity systems. We can fire rounds at any speed we want, slow enough to slip through their barriers, fast enough to punch through their hulls. The room erupted in excited chatter. Zerath held up his hand for silence. Even if that works, you have one ship against 15,000. Actually, we have 27 ships, Chen said calmly. The Defiance wasn't alone. The rest of our fleet is hiding in the Kuiper Belt, cold running. No emissions. No heat signature. Just waiting. 27 ships is still nothing, the Velori commander said. No offense to your people, Captain, but the numbers don't work. Chen's smile returned. You're thinking about conventional warfare again. Fleet against fleet. Strength against strength. That's not how humans fight. We've spent 400 years as guerrillas, Admiral. We don't fight fair. We don't fight honorably. We fight to win. She pulled up star charts marking several locations. The Krillians are heading here next, correct? The Outer Colonies cluster. They'll jump in with their full fleet. Overwhelming force as always. Yes, Zerath confirmed. Our scouts detected them 3 days ago. They'll arrive within the week. Good. That gives us time to prepare. Chen looked around the room. I need volunteers. Ships that are fast and can follow orders without question. We're going to teach the Krillians something they've never experienced before. What's that? Vess asked. Chaos. The next 5 days passed in a blur of activity. Captain Chen moved through the refugee fleet like a storm, reorganizing everything. She divided ships into small groups, each with a specific task. Some were equipped with debris launchers, firing junk and scrap metal into space along specific trajectories. Others were fitted with signal jammers, old human technology that Chen's engineers claimed could disrupt the Krillian hive mind communication. It won't shut them down completely, one of the human technicians explained to Zerath. But it'll create lag, delay their information sharing by a few seconds. In a battle, that's a lifetime. Zerath watched the preparations with growing confusion. Nothing made sense. Chen positioned civilian ships in seemingly random locations. She had teams setting up old-fashioned explosive mines in asteroid fields. Weapons so primitive they hadn't been used in warfare for centuries. The human captain even requested all the refugee fleet's waste material, organic matter and industrial byproducts. You're going to use garbage as a weapon? Vess asked incredulously. Everything is a weapon, Chen replied, if you use it correctly. On the 6th day, the Krillian advance fleet arrived. Exactly as predicted, they jumped in at the edge of the Outer Colonies system. 300 warships all flying in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed black in the starlight, and their energy shields flickered like purple flames. The Krillian commander broadcast a message. His voice was cold, mechanical, distorted by the hive mind connection. Inferior species detected. Surrender is futile. Resistance is futile. Destruction is inevitable. Same speech every time, Chen muttered. She was on the bridge of the Defiance, Zerath standing beside her. They really need better writers. Captain, you should evacuate now, Zerath said urgently. Before they detect your ship. Too late for that. Chen pointed at the tactical display. They've already seen us. One small ship right in their path. They're confused. Watch. The Krillian fleet slowed, scanning the Defiance. Zerath could imagine their surprise. One vessel against 300. Either this was a trap or the enemy was insane. The Krillians didn't understand concepts like bravery or sacrifice or desperation. Everything was calculated in their hive mind. Risk versus reward. Numbers versus numbers. They're targeting us, the human weapons officer reported. Good. Chen said calmly. Broadcast on all frequencies. Maximum volume. Authorization code Remember Terra. Suddenly, every speaker on every refugee ship in the system erupted with sound. Music, harsh and loud and chaotic. Drums pounding. Guitars screaming. Human voices shouting words in English. War songs from ancient Earth preserved through centuries of exile. The effect on the Krillians was immediate and visible. Their perfect formation wavered. Ships drifted out of position. Their synchronized movements became jerky and uncertain. What's happening? Zerath asked. The hive mind uses specific frequencies to communicate, Chen explained, watching her screens intently. We analyzed your battle recordings, mapped their communication patterns. This music uses the same frequencies. It's not jamming them exactly, more like shouting into their shared consciousness. Imagine 300 voices all trying to talk in your head at once. The Krillian fleet fired, but their targeting was off. Quantum disruptor beams lanced through space, missing the Defiance by hundreds of meters. Chen's pilot threw their ship into a wild series of maneuvers, moving in ways no trained military pilot would ever fly. Up-down spinning, reversing thrust randomly. Evasion pattern drunk pilot, the helmsman said with a grin. That's not a real military maneuver, Fess exclaimed. Exactly, Chen said. The Krillians predict movements based on logical tactics. This isn't logical. It's chaos. They can't calculate chaos. The Defiance dove toward an asteroid field. Krillian ships followed, still trying to form up properly. Then Chen gave the order Zerath had been waiting for. All units execute. Suddenly, the garbage the humans had been positioning revealed its purpose. Debris clouds erupted across the battlefield, thousands of small objects moving in unpredictable patterns. Krillian sensors went haywire, trying to track everything at once. Ships collided with asteroids. Others wasted ammunition shooting at empty cargo containers. The human fleet emerged from hiding, 27 ships appearing like ghosts. They didn't fight in formation. Each ship moved independently, firing slow-velocity rounds that slipped through Krillian barriers and tore through hulls. Remember, Chen said into her communication system, we're not trying to destroy them all. Just confuse them, hurt them, teach them that this won't be easy. Within an hour, 50 Krillian ships were destroyed. The rest retreated, jumping out of the system in disorder. The war room erupted in cheers. Zerath stood silent, staring at the tactical display. The Krillians had never retreated before. Never. Captain Chen, he said quietly. You just did the impossible. Chen looked tired.
No, Admiral.
We just did the improbable. Now comes the hard part. We taught them we're dangerous. The news spread across the refugee networks like wildfire. One human ship and a handful of volunteers had defeated a Krillian advance fleet. Defeated. Not just slowed down or survived, but actually won. For the first time in 200 years, species across the galaxy heard something other than stories of defeat. Hope, dangerous and infectious, began to grow. Captain Chen stood in the training center on Asteron Prime, watching as refugee soldiers practiced the new tactics. A Valori pilot struggled with the drunk pilot maneuver, his ship moving in stuttering jerks across the simulation. You're thinking too much, Chen called out. Stop trying to make it logical. Just move, react, feel it. My species has been trained in proper flight mechanics for 10,000 years, the pilot protested. This goes against everything I know. That's the point. Chen walked over to the simulation controls. The Krillians expect proper mechanics. They calculate based on training and logic. You need to be unpredictable. Be the pilot who doesn't make sense. The Valori tried again. This time he let go of his training, moving his ship in wild patterns. The simulation showed 3 Krillian ships trying to target him, their firing solutions constantly failing to lock on. Better, Chen said. Remember, you're not trying to be skilled. You're trying to be chaos. Commander Vess found her later that evening. The reptilian officer looked worried, her scales showing dark stress patterns. Captain, I need to speak with you privately. They walked to an observation deck overlooking the refugee fleet. Thousands of ships floated in space, a scattered collection of survivors from dozens of different species. Some were military vessels, but most were civilian transports, colony ships, merchant freighters, all that remained of civilizations that had once spanned star systems. You're giving them hope, Vess said quietly. That's dangerous. Hope is always dangerous, Chen agreed, but it's also necessary. You don't understand. The Krillians will come back with everything. Admiral Zerath estimates 15,000 ships in their main fleet. You have 27. The math doesn't work no matter how clever your tactics are. Chen was quiet for a moment, staring out at the stars. Can I tell you something about humanity, Commander? We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. We don't have the best technology or the biggest guns. You know what we have? What? We have spite. Chen's voice was hard. Pure, stubborn, unreasonable spite. Earth died. Our sun went dark and killed our homeworld. We should have died with it. Every logical calculation said we would. But we didn't, you know why? Because we were too angry to die, too stubborn to give up. We looked at the universe killing us and said no. Not today. Not ever. She turned to face Vess. Your people fought the Krillians with honor, with proper tactics and logical strategy. That's admirable. But humans don't fight fair. We fight dirty. We cheat, we lie. We hit below the belt and stab in the back and do whatever it takes to survive. Because at the end of the day, survival isn't about being right. It's about still being alive, Vess stared at her. You're talking about war crimes, dishonorable combat. I'm talking about winning. Chen's eyes were cold. The Krillians don't care about honor. They're going to kill everyone in this galaxy if someone doesn't stop them. I'd rather be alive and dishonorable than dead and righteous. Before Vess could respond, alarms blared across the station. Zerath's voice came over the communication system, urgent and sharp. All personnel to battle stations. Krillian main fleet detected. Repeat, main fleet detected. Multiple jump signatures across all sectors. They're surrounding us. Chen and Vess ran to the command center. The main holographic display showed a nightmare scenario. Red markers appeared across every approach to Asteron Prime. Hundreds of ships. Thousands. The Krillian fleet was enormous, blotting out the stars themselves. 15,247 vessels. A sensor operator reported, his voice shaking. They're jumping in on all sides. We're completely surrounded. Zerath looked at Chen, his expression showing defeat. I'm sorry, Captain. We can't fight this. We need to evacuate what we can. No, Chen said firmly. This is exactly where we want them. Are you insane? The Valori commander shouted. We have 800 ships against 15,000. Your tricks won't work against those numbers. Chen pulled up her own tactical display, showing positions she had been planning for days. Admiral, we need to abandon Asteron Prime right now. Load everyone into the ships and get ready to jump out. Abandon our last fortress? That's suicide. Trust me, Chen said, please. I need you to trust me. Zerath looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Begin evacuation. All ships prepare for emergency jump. We leave in 30 minutes. The next half hour was chaos. Millions of refugees scrambled onto ships, grabbing what they could carry. The fleet lifted off from Asteron Prime's docking bays, forming up in the space around the fortress world. The Krillian fleet advanced slowly, taking their time. They knew their prey was trapped. A message came through from the Krillian command ship. This time the voice was different, female and cold. I am Empress Kirishon, Supreme Commander of the Dominion. You have caused damage to our forces. This is unacceptable. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Chen opened a channel. Empress, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human fleet. I have a question for you. Humans. The Empress's voice showed surprise. The database indicates your species is extinct. Reports of our death were greatly exaggerated. Here's my question. Has your hive mind ever experienced fear? Fear is inefficient. The Dominion does not fear. Then let me introduce you to it. Chen looked at Zerath. Admiral, jump the fleet now. Every refugee ship activated their faster-than-light drives simultaneously. In seconds, the space around Asteron Prime was empty except for one vessel. The human warship Defiant stayed behind, alone before the Krillian armada. The human ship did not flee, a Krillian officer reported to the Empress. It's activating some kind of device. Empress Kirishon watched on her screens as the small human vessel began broadcasting a signal. Not the chaotic music from before. Something else. A countdown, what is that? She demanded. Captain Chen's voice came through again. Empress, humanity learned something important during our exodus. When your home dies, when everything you love turns to ice and darkness, you learn to let go. You learn that some things matter more than survival. Some things matter more than victory. The countdown reached 0. Asteron Prime exploded, not a normal explosion. The entire planet detonated in a blast of atomic fire. The humans had spent the last week rigging every nuclear reactor, every power core, every explosive device on the fortress world. Billions of tons of rock and metal turned into an expanding wave of destruction. The Krillian fleet, packed tightly around the planet to prevent escape, was caught in the blast. Ships at the center were vaporized instantly. Those farther out had their shields overloaded, their hulls crushed by the shockwave. The hive mind network, connected to every ship, experienced the death of thousands of vessels simultaneously. For the first time in their history, the Krillians felt terror. The Defiance jumped out just as the shockwave reached its position, disappearing into faster-than-light space. Chen watched the tactical display as the light from the explosion faded. Over 5,000 Krillian ships were gone, just gone. The rest were scattered, damaged, their perfect formations destroyed. The human fleet rejoined the refugees at a predetermined location 3 systems away. Zerath's face on the communication screen showed shock and awe. "You destroyed an entire planet," he whispered. "We destroyed an empty planet that would have fallen to the Krillians anyway," Chen corrected. "Better to use it as a weapon than let them have it." "How many ships did we lose?" "None. The evacuation was complete." Zerath laughed suddenly, a sound of disbelief. "You killed 5,000 enemy vessels without losing a single one of ours. That's impossible, though. That's human warfare." Chen looked tired. "We don't fight to dominate. We don't fight for honor. We fight to make the other side wish they'd never met us." Across the galaxy, the Krillian hive mind processed what had happened. 5,000 ships lost, an entire fleet crippled, and the enemy was still out there, still fighting, still refusing to die. For 200 years, the Krillians had swept across civilizations like a force of nature, unstoppable, inevitable. They had just learned that humans were a different kind of force, the kind that fought back against nature itself, the kind that looked at certain death and chose defiance. Empress Kira Shan sat in her command chair, feeling something she had never experienced before. Individual fear separate from the hive mind, a personal, intimate terror. "Send a message to all fleets," she said quietly. "The humans are not to be underestimated. They are not like the others." "What are they like?" her second-in-command asked. The Empress stared at the screen showing the explosion site. Even hours later, the space where Asteron Prime had been still glowed with residual heat. "They're like us," she said finally. "But worse, because they're not fighting for conquest. They're fighting for survival, and nothing is more dangerous than prey that refuses to die." In the refugee fleet, celebrations erupted across every ship. Zerath found Chen in the Defiance's O. 3 weeks after the destruction of Asteron Prime, the war changed completely. What had been a hopeless retreat became something else. Resistance. Real, organized resistance. Captain Chen stood before a holographic star map showing the entire theater of war. Red markers indicated Krillian positions. Blue markers showed the Allied fleet. Green markers represented human vessels scattered across dozens of systems. What had started as 27 ships had grown to 40. More human generation ships and colony vessels had heard the call and come to join the fight. "They're adapting," Chen said, pointing to several Krillian fleet movements. "Look at these patterns. They're spacing their ships farther apart, avoiding tight formations, learning from what we did at Asteron Prime." Admiral Zerath studied the map carefully. His confidence had grown over the past weeks. The broken, defeated Commander Chen had first met was gone. In his place stood a warrior who believed victory might actually be possible. "If they're adapting, what do we do?" he asked. "We adapt faster." Chen zoomed in on a particular system. "This is the Varkon system. 3 habitable planets, 2 of them currently occupied by Krillian garrison forces, about 50 ships total. Intel suggests they're using it as a supply depot. You want to attack a fortified position with 50 enemy ships?" Commander Vess asked. Since Asteron Prime, she had stopped questioning Chen's tactics, but doubt still crept into her voice sometimes. "No, I want you to attack it. With your forces, using human tactics." The room went silent. Vess's scales turned a lighter shade of green, the color of surprise among her species. "Captain, we've been training, but we're not humans. We don't think like you. You don't need to think like us. You need to think like yourselves, but with different rules." Chen pulled up training simulations. "Your species, the Draconians, are naturally good at 3-dimensional combat. You evolved on a planet with floating islands. You understand vertical movement better than most species. Use that. The Krillians expect flat battlefield tactics because that's what everyone has used so far." Over the next 3 days, Chen worked with Vess to plan the attack. Human advisors spread through the Allied fleet, teaching their methods. But Chen was careful to emphasize something important. Don't copy human tactics exactly. Adapt them to your own strengths. The Vailori, with their incredible reflexes, learned hit-and-run attacks. Strike fast, disappear faster. The Thurians, a species with natural talent for engineering, learned to create improvised weapons from whatever materials were available. Each species brought their own advantages to the fight. The attack on Varkon began at dawn on the fourth day. Vess led a force of 30 Draconian ships, supported by 10 human vessels hanging back as reserve. They jumped into the system not at the edge where enemies expected, but in the middle of the asteroid belt orbiting the fourth planet. The Krillian garrison responded immediately, forming defensive positions around their supply depot on Varkon 2. 50 ships against 30. The numbers favored the Krillians slightly, but numbers weren't everything anymore. All ships execute Heaven's Rain, Vess commanded. The Draconian fleet split into 3 groups. One dove toward the planet's surface. One climbed high above the orbital plane. The third held position in the asteroid field. The Krillians, programmed to defend the depot, split their forces to intercept all 3 groups. That was the mistake. The group diving toward the planet suddenly reversed thrust, shooting back up. The group climbing high dropped down. The third group in the asteroid scattered in all directions. The Krillian ships calculating interception courses found themselves targeting empty space. Their hive mind, usually so efficient at coordination, couldn't process the rapid 3-dimensional movement fast enough. Vess felt a surge of pride. This was Draconian combat, the way her ancestors had fought in the sky battles of their home world. Not the rigid, flat tactics the military academies taught. This was instinct and intuition and 3-dimensional thinking. Fire at will, she ordered. The Draconian ships attacked from above, below, and all angles at once. Slow-velocity rounds punched through Krillian barriers. Improvised debris launchers created confusion. And most importantly, the attacks came from directions the Krillians weren't prepared for. Within an hour, 20 Krillian ships were destroyed. The rest retreated, abandoning the supply depot. Vess sat in her command chair, breathing hard. They had won. Not the humans. Not Chen. Her people had won using their own strengths. Excellent work, Commander. Chen's voice came through the communication system. That's how it's done. Now let's do it again. 50 more times, and they did. Over the next 2 months, the Allied fleet launched raid after raid. Each one targeted Krillian supply lines, isolated garrisons, communication stations. Each one used different tactics adapted to different species' strengths. The Vailori attacked research stations with lightning speed. The Thurians destroyed manufacturing facilities with creative demolitions. The humans themselves focused on the most dangerous targets, the ones that required their particular brand of ruthlessness. Admiral Zerath watched the strategic situation change. The Krillian advance had stopped completely. They were still the larger force, still controlled more territory, but they had been forced onto the defensive for the first time in their history. We're hurting them, he said during a strategy meeting, but we're not beating them. Their main fleet is still intact. Over 9,000 ships. Eventually, they'll coordinate a massive attack we can't stop. Then we need to give them something else to worry about, Chen said. She pulled up data on Krillian territory. Their empire is huge, but it's only been around for 200 years. That's not long enough to fully integrate all the species they've conquered. There must be resistance movements, underground organizations, survivors hiding in the ruins. Are you suggesting we contact them? Vess asked. I'm suggesting we arm them. Chen's smile was fierce. The Krillians rule through fear and overwhelming force. But humans have a saying. You can't stop an idea whose time has come. We're going to give every oppressed species in Krillian space the same message. Fight back. You're not alone anymore. The mission was dangerous. Human ships, being the smallest and fastest, volunteered to carry weapons and supplies deep into Krillian territory. They jumped in system after system, finding survivors, resistance groups, anyone still fighting. Each group received weapons, tactical training, and most importantly, proof that the Krillians could be beaten. One human ship, the Resilience, jumped into a system the Krillians had conquered 30 years ago. The planet below was a wasteland, its cities in ruins, but scans detected life signs in underground bunkers. Lieutenant Marcus Webb led the landing party. They found a group of survivors from the Korthan species, about 200 individuals living in old mine tunnels. The Korthans were small, barely 4 feet tall, with gray skin and large eyes adapted for darkness. Their leader, an elderly female named Shira, greeted the humans with suspicion. "You're not Krillian." "No, ma'am," Webb said. "We're human. We're here to help you fight back." "Fight back?" Shira laughed bitterly. "With what? We have mining tools and desperation. The Krillians have warships." Webb opened the cargo containers his team had brought. Inside were weapons, explosives, communication equipment. The Krillians do have warships, but those warships need fuel, supplies, maintenance. I'm betting they have a garrison base on this planet somewhere. They do. Northeast continent near what used to be our capital. Then that's your target. Webb pulled up tactical displays showing guerrilla warfare techniques. You don't fight them head on. You sabotage. You hit their supplies. You make them afraid to leave their base. You make ruling this planet cost more than it's worth. Shira looked at the weapons, then at Webb. Why? Why do you care about our world? Because someone has to. Webb's voice was quiet. Because the Krillians think they can do whatever they want. Because every planet they control that rises up is one less planet they can use against us. And because it's the right thing to do. The Korthans accepted the weapons. Before the humans left, Shira asked one more question. Will you win this war? Webb smiled. Ma'am, we're humanity. We survived 400 years in the dark. We're too stubborn to lose. But whether we win or not, we're going to make sure the Krillians regret ever starting this fight. Stories like that played out across dozens of worlds. The Krillian Empire, so vast and powerful, began to crack from within. Garrison forces came under attack from their own conquered populations. Supply lines were sabotaged. Communications were jammed. The hive mind, used to coordinating fleet actions, suddenly had to deal with thousands of small threats scattered across hundreds of systems. Empress Kirishan watched reports flood in from across her empire. Rebellion, resistance, revolution. Words she had never needed to consider before. How did this happen? She demanded. We crushed these species. They accepted their place. The humans taught them to fight, her advisor replied. More than that, they taught them hope. Every conquered world now believes they can win. Then we will make an example. Choose the world with the strongest resistance. Destroy it completely. Show everyone what happens to those who defy us. My Empress, that would require pulling ships from the main fleet. Our forces are already stretched thin responding to attacks. Kirishan slammed her hand. The meeting took place in the neutral zone, a region of space claimed by no one and protected by ancient treaties older than most current civilizations. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the Krillian flagship approach. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of her own vessel, its black hull covered in weapon ports and shield generators. They could destroy us in seconds, Commander Vess said nervously. She had insisted on accompanying Chen to the meeting, along with Admiral Zerath. The three of them represented the entire Allied command. They could, Chen agreed, but they won't, not here, not now. The Empress wants something from us. The two flagships docked at a neutral station, an ancient structure that had served as a meeting place for peace talks for thousands of years. Chen walked through the airlock wearing her uniform, unarmed as protocol required. Zerath and Vess followed close behind. Empress Kirishan was waiting in the central chamber. She was tall, over 8 feet, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Her eyes were completely black, reflecting the hive mind that connected her to millions of others. She wore armor that looked organic, as if it had grown onto her body rather than been crafted. Captain Chen, the Empress said. Her voice was cold, but no longer had that mechanical hive mind distortion. She was speaking as an individual. You have caused considerable difficulty for the Dominion. You started a war of extinction, Chen replied calmly. We just finished it differently than you expected. Finished? The war is far from over. We still control more territory than you. We still have more ships. If we commit our full fleet, we will crush you. Maybe. Probably even. But at what cost? Chen walked to the viewing window looking out at the stars. Let me tell you what happens if you attack us with everything you have. First, we scatter. Our ships disappear into dark space, hiding in places you'll never find. Second, every world you've conquered rises up at once. We've armed them all, trained them, given them hope. You'll spend decades trying to put down rebellions. Third and most important, we'll keep fighting forever, because that's what humans do. The Empress was quiet for a moment. You would sacrifice everything rather than accept defeat? We already did that once. Earth died. We could have died with it. Instead, we chose to survive no matter what it took. Do you understand what that means? It means we've already lost everything. You have nothing left to threaten us with. Chen turned to face the Empress directly. But here's the thing. I didn't come here to threaten you. I came to offer you peace, Kirishan laughed, a harsh sound. Peace after everything that has happened? Peace, Chen confirmed. Real peace. You withdraw from the systems you've conquered. Give them back their freedom. Stop the expansion. In return, we stop attacking you. The resistance movements stand down. We all go back to rebuilding our civilizations. Unacceptable. The Dominion does not retreat. We have never retreated. Then let me offer you the alternative. Chen's voice became hard. We keep fighting. You lose ships, resources, time. Your empire tears itself apart from within. Eventually, someone in your hive mind decides the war isn't worth it and challenges your authority, or maybe a dozen someone's. Your perfect coordination fractures. And while you're dealing with internal chaos, we're still out here, still hitting you, still refusing to die. How long before your dominion collapses completely? The Empress's black eyes reflected nothing, but Chen could see the tension in her posture. She was thinking, calculating. The hive mind was debating. Why do you care? Kirishan asked finally. You could continue fighting. Eventually you might even win. Why offer peace? Because I'm tired. Chen's voice softened. I'm tired of war. I'm tired of killing. I've been fighting my entire life. First for survival in the dark, then against the universe itself. Now against you. I just want it to end. I want my people to have a home. I want the galaxy to stop burning. She stepped closer to the Empress. And because despite everything, I don't think you're evil. You're logical. You're efficient. You conquer because conquest makes sense to your hive mind. But you can learn. You've already learned that conquest has costs you didn't anticipate. So learn this too. Peace can be more efficient than war. The hive mind requires consensus, the Empress said slowly. I cannot make this decision alone. Then convince them. Show them the math. Show them what continued war will cost versus what peace offers. You're supposed to be logical. Be logical now. The Empress was silent for a long time. Chen could see her eyes flickering, processing information, communicating with the hive mind across light years of space. Thousands of voices debating, calculating, analyzing. Finally, Kirishan spoke. What are your terms? Chen pulled up a holographic display showing a proposed map of the galaxy. These systems in red are yours. You keep them. You were there first or you colonized empty space. They're legitimately yours. These systems, in blue, you've conquered in the last 200 years. You withdraw from them completely. Full independence. No garrisons, no occupation forces, nothing. That's over 1,000 systems. That's what it costs to end this war. These systems in green are neutral zones. Neither of us enters without permission. They act as buffers preventing future conflicts. Zerath watched the negotiation with amazement. 3 months ago he had been preparing to die. Now he was watching a human captain dictate terms to the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The Empress studied the map. And if we refuse? Then we go back to fighting. And in 100 years, when the Dominion has fallen and humanity is still here, someone will look back at this moment and wonder why you chose pride over survival. You assume you would survive. Chen smiled grimly. Empress, let me tell you a story. 400 years ago, humanity had weapons that could destroy entire planets. We nearly used them on ourselves. We came that close to extinction by our own hand. But we stopped. We chose to survive instead. Now ask yourself, if we were willing to nearly destroy ourselves and still chose survival, what do you think we'll do to an outside threat? The implications hung in the air. The Krillians were powerful, but humanity had a history of taking terrible risks and somehow surviving them. I need to consult with the hive mind, Kirishan said. This will take time. Take all the time you need. But while you decide, the war continues. Every day you delay, you lose ships and systems. Every day the cost goes up. The meeting adjourned. Chen returned to her ship and waited. 3 days passed with no response. Then 5, then a week. During that time, the Allied fleet launched more raids. More resistance movements rose up. More Krillian supply lines were cut. On the 8th day, a message came through. The Empress was ready to talk again. This time the meeting was different. Kirishan brought documents. Official treaties written in multiple languages. She looked tired, if a being connected to a hive mind could look tired. The consensus is reached, she said. We will accept your terms. With modifications. The negotiations took hours. The Krillians wanted to keep certain strategic systems. The Allies wanted reparations for destroyed worlds. Back and forth, compromise and counter-compromise. Chen held firm on the important issues and yielded on the smaller ones. She wasn't trying to humiliate the Krillians. She was trying to end the war. Finally, as the station's lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, they reached an agreement. The Treaty of Neutral Zone, it would be called. The Krillians would withdraw from conquered systems over a period of 2 years. The Allies would cease all military operations immediately. Neutral zones would be established. Trade agreements would be discussed. War crimes tribunals would be held for both sides. There's one more thing, Chen said as they prepared to sign. The humans need a home. A system we can claim, rebuild, make ours. Earth is dead. We need a new Earth. The Empress pulled up a star chart. This system, we call it Proxima Sanctuary. 3 habitable planets rich in resources currently uninhabited. It's far from our borders but defensible. We claim it by right of discovery, but we will cede it to humanity as part of this treaty. Chen looked at the data on Proxima Sanctuary. It was beautiful. Stable star, no hostile native life, plenty of water and minerals, everything humanity needed to start over. Thank you, she said quietly. Do not thank me, Captain. You took it. We simply acknowledge reality. They signed the treaty, human, Krillian, and dozens of other species as witnesses. The war that had lasted 200 years ended not with a grand battle, but with signatures on a document. 3 months later, the first human colony ships landed on Proxima Sanctuary Prime. Chen stood on the surface, feeling real soil under her boots for the first time in her life. The sky was blue, not the artificial blue of a ship's viewport, but real atmosphere scattering real sunlight. Admiral Zerath found her standing on a hill overlooking the landing site. Below them, prefabricated buildings were going up. Farms were being planted. Children were playing in fields of alien grass. You did it, Zerath said. You saved the galaxy. I saved what I could, Chen corrected. Too many died before we arrived. Too many worlds lost, but more were saved. The Krillians are actually withdrawing. Species are regaining their freedom. It's a miracle, Chen smiled slightly. Not a miracle. Just humans being stubborn. We're very good at that. What will you do now? The war is over. Peace is here.